Like most things are just like, oh, okay, Superman's gonna pick up a tractor as a kid and he's gonna move it across a field or whatever. But there is also that
Hold
he.
on.
I heard the
Hold on.
train.
Yeah, there's a train passing. We're just gonna wait for the train to pass because it's loud.
Welcome back to the RNS podcast. This week is episode 8, and this week you are joined by Rain and Sunshine. How are you doing, Rain?
I'm feeling a little rainy. It's a little cold outside for rain. It might be snow and sunshine, but that's not the name of the podcast. I'm good. I really enjoyed our little research project we did for this episode.
Yeah. So jumping right into it, we are starting a new series here on the channel called Rhiley Watches DC. Riley, how about you explain what that means?
Yeah, so I've seen a few DC movies, but not really many in the DCEU. So, like, I've seen the Nolan Batman movies and stuff like that, but not forever anyway. I've seen Wonder Woman. I think that's the only one that I've seen in terms of DC movies, and it hasn't been for a good 3 years now, if that's even
Yeah,
possible. I'm not sure when it came out.
movie
So,
came out in June 2017. So
yeah, I haven't really seen it just around since it came out. I've never been too keen on DC content. I was never raised on comic book stuff anyway, but I was introduced to Marvel thanks to my girlfriend, and so that's my main.
that's your main superhero content that you digest.
Yeah, that's the main superhero place I go to, and I never really cared for DC because my one foray into it is just all the bad reviews from all the DC movies that come out.
Mhm.
So I'd never really been interested in it, but I realized, I've never seen it. I might as well document my experiences with watching all the DC movies through the podcast.
Yep.
So we started when the DCEU started with Man of Steel, and we're going to try to go through as chronologically as possible, though some of the movies, such as like Wonder Woman 1984, leaves its current streaming service at the end of January of 2021. So we're going to try to watch that before it leaves.
Mhm.
But other than that, yeah, we're going to attempt to go in the order they released in.
Yeah, for the most part, the movies released in chronological order. The only changes are the Wonder Woman movies. But next, I'm gonna have you watch Batman vs Superman. There's a couple good things about the movie, but you'll see like why it's just whack.
Yeah,
But
we'll talk a little bit about that at the end of our little DC segment here. But in terms of a roadmap for the podcast today, we're going to dive into discussions about my opinions on Man of Steel. After that, we're going to do a little bit of recap for the week's news, since we are a weekly podcast. We'd like to try to keep that up to date. It's going to involve some stuff related to WandaVision and other Marvel-related ideas, but that's about it.
mhm. So right off the bat, what are your general thoughts about Man of Steel?
So, Man of Steel was actually better than I expected it to be because it was the first one that came out. I do remember that there were pretty decent reviews from it, but over the years, especially considering this form of Superman has been involved in movies such as Batman vs Superman and Justice League, it seems that the other DC projects has seemed to kind of bring this one down with it, kind of clasping onto it to keep them out of the gutter or out of the bad pit, and then it just kind of pulls it down into it itself. So I watched this with you the first time. We watched it together,
Mhm.
and I was asking questions basically the whole time because I don't know too much about Superman and DC, like I was saying. So a lot of it was just making sure that I understood what was happening. And of course, if you don't know the comic books, it is still a very enjoyable movie to watch. Like I said, I enjoyed it, but probably the biggest criticism I have of the movie right off the bat here is that I feel like it relies too much on the viewers having that knowledge of comic book stuff. And even if it doesn't, a lot of it, like the way that they do some exposition, is very obvious. Like, we'll just throw the exposition into this one line. So I feel like they could have handled the exposition better. But again, I mean, Marvel probably, because I know a bit more about Marvel, I don't feel the same way about it relying too much on a comic book knowledge. And I'm sure it does. So this criticism might just be because I know more about Marvel than I do about DC. But I definitely think that some of the exposition moments were a little heavy-handed. Otherwise, the only other like blatant bad thing that took me out of the movie was all of the Snyder zooms because
Yeah.
it's, Zack Snyder. Almost every time it would happen, I would notice it and it would pull me straight out of the action. Like, oh, there's a Snyder zoom. That's, a decision
Yeah.
the director made and not just allowing me to watch the movie and really get invested in its story.
We were literally just yelling, Snyder Zoom. There's a Snyder
Yep.
Zoom.
There was one scene where it was like it was far out, and then a Snyder zoom into the screen, and then in the same uncut shot, another one. I'm like, Snyder, what are you doing? But
Yeah.
besides those things, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I liked the way that they were able to show us what Krypton looked like because it just kind of seems like this, oh, this one planet, it died, and now human has powers on Earth, and it goes into why Superman's got his powers. They don't actually ever use the term Superman in this movie, which I actually appreciated.
They did use it once.
Yeah, they implied they're
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm gonna call myself and then it cut off because of
Well, no,
Zod.
there's another one. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, there's another one wherein they were tracking. I believe it's when they were tracking Superman and Zod in the atmosphere. They
Hmm.
showed the war room with the general, and one of the soldiers is like, "All right, Zod and Superman are in the atmosphere." And they turn back and look at him. They're just like, "Superman," and the guy's just like, "Yeah, that's what they're calling him in the news."
Okay. Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, you're
So
right. They
yeah,
they do only use it like once.
yeah. So I appreciated they weren't just like, well, look, it's Superman.
Mhm.
There's no, it's a bird, it's a plane kind of stuff. It's a lot. It's that same kind of darker DC atmosphere that they kind of established in this movie. But yeah, I really liked a lot of the story beats. I liked some of it. I liked that it wasn't explained very well, like the dream sequence that he has when Zod talking about what he wants to do when he's just kind of swallowed into a sea of skulls. I like that that wasn't explained super well, and then later on it kind of is open for the viewer to interpret because you see the exact same machine later on before you know what it is, unless you know from comic book stuff. But I'm kind of rambling at this point, but overall, I really enjoyed what I saw. Some of it was, like I said, a bit heavy handed in the exposition. I thought maybe it was more for the comic book fan and less for the general moviegoer in terms of the lore. Of course, the movie itself is great, gorgeous for the general moviegoer.
So I'll give some of my overall thoughts. I grew up as a DC kid. Like I didn't really touch Marvel until Iron Man came to theaters. I was a huge DC fan as a kid. Like growing up as a kid, at first I started watching like Super Friends with my dad. And then from there, I moved on to Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, phenomenal cartoons, and Batman the Animated Series, stuff like that. I'll make you watch the Justice League cartoons one day just because they're phenomenal.
Just tie me down and force me to watch them,
Yeah,
Clockwork Orange style.
basically. Hey, I mean, it's all connected in a DC animated universe. And then now there's the current DC animated universe with a bunch of movies. But anyways, so I was really happy when this movie came to theaters when man, I want to say I was 14. I could be wrong.
You were probably 14 or 15 because I think it released in 2013.
Yeah, it released in 2013 and I
Hmm.
forget how to do math. But basically, I was really happy when this movie came to theaters and I was happy when I found out that they were basically retconning the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern. So, I
Yeah, we don't want to talk about that.
yeah, this movie has a special place in my heart just because the scoring is phenomenal. Like
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention the score is amazing.
yeah, I'm so happy that they have Hans Zimmer in there. I'm especially happy because Superman I would say still is one of my favorite, if not my favorite superhero. He's not that complex, he's not that deep as a character, but he's always just been I've always had a special place in my heart for Superman. To me, Henry Cavill is Superman, and a lot of rumors and talk in the past year really make it sound like that he will return as Superman. And overall, I just really liked Man of Steel. Like for me, it's a solid 8 out of 10. If it were like a Marvel movie, it would probably be middle of the pack for me. That's just how
Hmm.
good Marvel is. I had a couple like weird script issues. Snyder zooms kind of got annoying, but overall, it's like it still is a visually gorgeous movie. I really liked all the extra stuff they added about Krypton because, like, for years, all it was just like you see Jor-El and Lara put Cal in the pod, and he goes flying off, and then the planet explodes. Like, I'm glad that through Zod's actions, we get a lot more context of what was going on Krypton. You also get some real life nods. It's just like, hey, maybe we shouldn't kill our planet and listen to the scientists.
Yeah, it made the Krypton dying thing a lot more of a tangible idea because everyone knows that Krypton dies and Superman flies off of it, but like this shows, well, Krypton's dying because of Kryptonians, and there are people who knew this was going to happen and have made the preparations to avoid the consequences of a intergalactic species dying out.
Mhm.
And there are some who think that there are people who are too enthralled with the government to care about what's happening to the rest of their species. And there are people who know what's happening and are making the necessary preparations. So, one, some social commentary there. And two, it was interesting to see just how they played it out, how Jor-El was, smarter. It seems smarter than Zod, even though Zod is a smart man and was the general of their military forces. He attempted to lead a coup because he thought the government wasn't doing the right things in terms of how to save Krypton. And of course, that's Zod's main motive is how to save Krypton and bring it back. And initially, they both have the same idea, but they're going about it in different ways, which is something we're seeing more and more in comic book movies and also in just kind of conflicts in general. Is the villain is not fully evil just because they're evil and they are wearing you know, the evil purple hood or whatever. They have the same motivations as the protagonist, but they just have less of a morality system to keep them from doing things that generally would be considered as corrupt. Like Jor-El wants to see Krypton live again as well, but Zod is willing to murder people and take over an entire planet and basically create genocide of humans to see Krypton live again what probably not instead of having Jor not do that. So in general, it was an interesting way to see the setup there, and also just kind of see cool technology on Krypton to see like, oh well, this is they were about the same age as us. I mean, Kal-El was able to crash land on Earth in our time, even though Krypton was ridiculously advanced. I'm just rambling now.
No, you're all good. All right. Did you have other stuff you wanted to say about Man of Steel?
Some things that I was thinking about as I was talking. I appreciated that we got to see like the creation of the superhero, like how he wasn't just, Superman overnight. Rome wasn't built in a day, where he had to learn to control his powers and focus on certain things because as you can see with Zod, they have the same powers and everything. They're both Kryptonians under Yellow Sun and everything like that. But Zod doesn't know how to control it initially, and it's just like an overwhelming overstimulus of all of everything that he's seeing. So it's interesting to see that he has to learn to control that, and also specifically with that one, and then the scene where he's learning to fly, where it goes from initially where he can leap over tall buildings with a single bound, where he's just jumping really high, and then he's able to learn how to like defy gravity while like he jumps and then he jumps higher and then he jumps and doesn't come down the next time.
Hmm.
So it's cool to see that kind of evolution from initially where he wasn't able to fly, he was just able to jump high in like Action Comics #1, kind of that early, and then be able to see the evolution through that. Other things I liked how just ridiculously destructive they were because it was just, two aliens fighting on a planet they didn't own. Just to see how crazy destructive they were. It was more on the side of Zod was destroying everything because he didn't care about the planet, and Cal was trying to save everything. Though in the process they were just flying around and destroying buildings and whatnot. But the world engine was an interesting idea I had never heard of, and I liked it. It was pretty cool how it was like terraforming the planet in both like actual Terra, Earth, changing it, and also the environment and atmosphere itself. Another criticism that I have, just not in terms of this movie specifically, but in all movies, I'm not a huge fan of when, final battles try to take it to the next level by just flying. Because there's that scene where Zod learns to fly and they're just flying around punching each other midair.
Hmm.
I don't like those scenes because we really have no, besides what the movie tells us, we have no relatable idea of what it's like to fight in the air. We can't fly. The only way we can fly is just by like airplanes and stuff like that. We don't know what it's like to fight in the air. And even though it seems like a natural idea they're fighting so hard on the ground, they have to jump up into the air as the next level. Every single time there is a sky battle, we know exactly how it will end. Someone's going to be punched down to the ground or someone's going to land. Like there's no like thematic tension to oh geez, I wonder what happens next. They land. That's what happens next. Though, and also because I've seen so many clips of Men of Steel over the years, I had seen certain sections of the movie, but I haven't seen the whole thing. So it was interesting to kind of see the rest of the puzzle pieces fit into my mental image of what the movie was. And I've seen clips of it. I've seen people break down the narrative and the story behind it, like really breaking down what it really meant for Superman to actually kill someone to save other people. The one life to save millions or billions of others. At the very end of it, where he was trying his hardest to not kill Zod or anyone else, but he had to end up breaking Zod's neck to save the people right in front of him. So interesting moral dilemmas as well introduced. So overall, I really liked the movie. It was really pretty. The music was great. Besides some narrative things such as, like I said, the sky battle, some of the exposition, and the Snyder zooms and everything kind of took me out of it. But the rest of it was really enjoyable. Oh, what's the name of like the right hand woman of Zod? What was her name?
Feora.
Yeah, so I understand that Theora was probably like, love to hate her kind of character. But like I was saying earlier in an earlier episode with the crew we get to see with Mando on like the episode The Prisoner in
Mhm.
Mandalorian, I understand that they are a kind of love to hate them character, but I just really hated how absolutely overpowered she was.
Mhm.
She just jumped on screen and it was like, ah, she's Kryptonian and she's destroying the humans and wow, she's so powerful. And that was it. Her whole character was she's more powerful than humans, and it was kind of annoying just how ridiculously overpowered she was because her like she didn't really have any story motives or anything. It was just she was killing people because they were in Zod's way. Like she didn't seem to have, unless I missed it, she didn't seem to have any actual motivation besides she's on Zod's side and Zod said, "Hey, kill that guy," and she said, "Okay." I say jump, you say how high. So besides some of these things, and it sounds like I'm just kind of finding more and more things to rag on for the movie, but I really did like it. It was really good. I kind of am sad I haven't seen it until now. What 8 years later after it released, 7.5, 8 years later. Yeah, I definitely would watch it again. Besides a few things, I mean, I still have gripes with absolutely some of my favorite movies and some of my favorite games and whatnot like that. I can appreciate what they do despite their flaws.
Oh, of course. So I had a few notes about the movie, some that I like, some that I don't.
Hmm.
A couple things I really liked is that I like how, in contrast to other superhero or Superman mediums that have come out before, that there is a whole storyline of Superman as a kid, not only just learning how to use his powers, but also having to hide them, which is a big thought process throughout all of Superman's childhood by Kevin Costner. Which, by the way, Kevin Costner and Diane Lane as Martha and John Kent, phenomenal.
Hmm.
But yeah, Jonathan Kent's just kind of teaching him like the world isn't ready for you, and they're going to freak out. Which we see later as Superman becomes Superman. Also, so flight, the when Superman learns to fly, is
Hmm.
hands down one of my favorite scenes in a movie of all time.
Yeah.
Superman learning to fly, the visuals, the symbolism, the Russell Crowe voiceover, the Hans Zimmer score in the background. It's just phenomenal. It's one of my favorite scenes in a movie of all time. It literally gives me chills every time I see it.
I mean, the way that you're describing it's giving me chills here.
Yeah. The only other thing I could think of off the top of my head that makes me a little sad about Man of Steel is that the character of Dr. Emil Hamilton, who's played by Richard Schiff, is just killed just because he's kind of a big character in uh the DCEU. Like, Dr. Selvig from the Thor movies,
Yeah.
how he's kind of like throughout there in the background, just kind of important to some of the stories. That's kind of like Dr. Hamilton, and as far as we're aware, he's dead. And it's kind of sad just because he's heavily involved in the Supergirl storyline. So I'm kind of surprised that he's dead.
Hmm.
But with that being said, Riley, at a scale of 1 to 10, would you give it? What would you give this movie?
I'd say it's probably a solid 6.5 to 7 out of 10. Yeah, I definitely, like I said, I loved it. Some of the things, like watching it again, I would love to do. Some of those scenes are awesome. Definitely the Snyder zooms will take me out, like I said earlier. They always, they did throughout the first time I watched it. But other than that, and a few other complaints I had about it, some of the characters I didn't like, it was a great movie. I really liked it. So yeah, I'm gonna say like 6.5 or 7 out of 10.
One last thing I wanted to mention about Man of Steel that I really liked is that it actually does a really good job building the DCEU. There are a lot of things that happen in Man of Steel that do carry over into Batman vs Superman and Justice League. It's not really touched by some of the solo standalone films, but this movie does have consequences that carry over for movies to come.
Yeah, which I will see soon. But yeah.
So jumping right into DC news that we learned this week, Harry Lennox, who played General Swanwick for this movie,
Hmm.
confirms that he went back and he shot scenes for his Snyder cut as the Martian Manhunter.
Really?
Yeah. So do you know anything about Martian Manhunter?
The only way that I know him is that he's a character who is in Justice League cartoons,
Yeah.
and like my only experience with him is knowing he exists in like animated DC universe, and that's about it. I couldn't even tell you what he looked like. Maybe that he's green, but that's
Yeah.
about it.
So while I explain what he looks like, just go ahead and pull up a picture of him on your phone and I'll explain like some of the stuff about him. So Martian Manhunter is from Mars. It has a genius level IQ. He can,
Oh, this guy.
yeah, he
Yeah.
can transform or he can shapeshift into other beings. He could fly, super strength, telepathic abilities. He could go invisible. So his really cool story is what kicked off the Justice League cartoon. So there was Justice League and then there was Justice League Unlimited. Unlimited it was when like, all right, we got 50 plus superheroes on our team now. But his story kicks off the Justice League cartoon where he was captured on Earth by American soldiers because he was weak and didn't have his powers. He
Hmm.
telepathically reaches out to Superman, and from there, like freeing him causes an alien invasion, and at the end, he joins the Justice League. So I am super happy that he's in the Snyder Cut now, just because Martian Manhunter has always been one of my favorite DC and Justice League characters and one of the most underrated. So Harry Lennox, his character General Swanwick, can totally be John Jones, aka the Martian Manhunter, in disguise as a human, so that he can learn about Earth and prepare for an impending alien invasion.
Interesting. So is that like have a retcon sort of thing?
What do you mean, like retconning his story
Like
from the
like
comics, or
what? Well, no, no, no. Is it retconning General Swanwick?
yeah? Uh, I guess it's not retconning him in the official canon because the Snyder Cut is not official DC canon.
Yeah.
It's a passion project that Snyder finally gets to finish.
Hmm. Well,
So
that's cool either way.
yeah, I am very happy, very excited about that. The other or a couple other pieces of news is that Morbius is pushed to October. I kind of saw this one coming.
Yeah, that's why we put our little we're recording this on this date thing in the last episode because we knew some news would come out and change pretty soon afterwards because
Yeah.
it is the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
So,
We didn't have any insider information. We are just like, this movie's coming out in March. No, it's not.
yep.
So Kevin Feige has said a lot of the rumors going around about Spider-Man 3 are on the spot. Other rumors that have been going around are not correct.
So he just kind of said some of them yes, some of them no.
Yeah, be wary about that. For example, I think all the other Spider-Man could be in there in some sort of multiverse sequence. I'm not sold that Daredevil's going to be in it.
Yeah, a lot of the rumors are crazy outlandish. Like,
Mhm.
oh, I don't know, just like a really old bearded Tobey Maguire will just take up the mantle again. Like, well, maybe
Yeah.
I don't know.
We also know that according to the Russo brothers and Tom Holland, there is something coming out tomorrow on January 14th. A lot of people are like, yes, we finally get to see Spider Man 3. But people are forgetting that the Russo brothers are tied to one of Tom Holland's current projects, Cherry.
It's
Uh,
probably going to be something on Cherry. Yeah,
yeah,
because there was like a live action, not live action. There was a live like news kind of sit down hangout thing with them a little bit ago, and I think it's going to be something on Cherry because we don't know too much about that movie yet.
we don't. And also, Tom Holland is also involved in Uncharted, so it could possibly be that. But I just really don't think we're seeing anything from Spider Man 3 tomorrow, given the fact that we still have 11 months to go on it, and we still haven't seen anything on Shang-Chi. So,
Yeah, so we're not seeing anything on Spider-Man 3 because this is not the time for the Marvel hype train to begin pulling out of the station, considering that we need space for other trains to escape the station, such as, like you said, Shang-Chi, Eternals, stuff like that.
So, moving into this last piece of news, unless you could think of anything else, WandaVision is airing 2 episodes on Friday.
That's confirmed.
That is confirmed. We have 2 episodes coming out, and it's 9 episodes. So we are back to having a 1 week break between WandaVision finale and Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Nice.
So Kevin Feige also said that some projects or some of the Marvel shows coming out are in production of or are in the stage of prepping for a season 2. The first one that we heard that has a second season is Loki.
So it's confirmed that Loki has a second season.
It is confirmed that Loki will have
Ooh,
a second season.
interesting.
I don't know what other shows are going to do a second season, but anyways, we are as of today, January 13th, we are 2 days away from having our first Marvel Disney Plus series.
Yep.
So, have you been watching some of the clips they've released so far?
I have not. I kind of want to go in there as blind as possible.
Mhm.
Um, so I haven't been seeing a lot of the clips besides like some of the trailers that they've been releasing. I know that there was like a first few minutes clip that may have been released, maybe.
Mhm.
I'm not keeping too much up on it. The only reason I know about them is just because I see one of the channels I watch on YouTube has been kind of doing a breakdown of them.
Mhm.
But I'm trying to avoid it just so I can kind of go in as blind as possible. And then I'll probably go back and retroactively watch all of the breakdowns and everything up until our episode on the first two.
So I'm very excited because I've been watching these clips, and growing up as a kid, I religiously watched I Love Lucy with my family. So
Yeah, my
seeing as
mom did too.
yeah, so seeing as how one of the alternate or one of the realities that Wanda is creating is kind of based off of I Love Lucy, it just makes me so happy. And watching those clips reminds me of how good Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany are together on screen. Like
hmm
it works. It really works. So Paul Bettany earlier this week said that there is a surprise character that will be heavily involved in this season. Do you have any predictions?
the only predictions I might have would be like a random sword agent we're not aware of yet,
Hmm.
or maybe someone we don't know that actually joined into Sword. Because we know that Monica Rambeau
Hmm.
is a sword agent. We know that she's there. There are some theories as to how she's gotten into the TV. Words are hard.
TV universe?
The TV little pocket dimension that she's formed either by herself or because she's being trapped there. But besides like some other sword agent, my only other prediction might just be Doctor Strange because I know that WandaVision ties into Doctor Strange 2 and Spider-Man 3.
That's kind of my thinking too. I think Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange will be around. To what degree we don't know. But so from the rumored formats that we know of these episodes,
Oh, actually, hold on.
what's up?
One other one that I might think of would be Quicksilver
Yeah,
might show up somehow because we don't know how time works in this world. So,
yeah.
we might see more of Quicksilver.
I mean, if Vision is dead and Wanda's seeing him again, we definitely should and probably will see Quicksilver.
Yeah.
So, the rumored format of these episodes is that the first 6 episodes or so are going to be in the ballpark of 30 minutes each, with the final 3 being about an hour long each.
Okay, so the first 6 are kind of your generic sitcom episodes with some Marvel stuff thrown in. And then
Right.
the last 3 are like the actual, the WandaVision movie kind of thing.
Yeah, that's how it's feeling right now. I so what I'm thinking is that the first 6 episodes are going to be your sitcoms,
hmm
with interlaced into episodes are going to be things that kind of feel like reality's breaking a little bit, or kind of getting glimpses of what's going on in the real world, and then like the final scene could be like, oh, she accidentally turned New York upside down, or stuff that what's going on in the real world, how this is all affecting that.
Yeah.
And then the last 3 episodes, whatever is the big conflict of the series, which we don't really know yet. The last 3 episodes will be kind of, you know, resolving the overall conflict.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier in our breakdown of the news that we got, a massive theory about the main conflict here is it's sort of following House of M, a little bit maybe, where this kind of will allow us to have mutants in the MCU. Also, in terms of the actual, well, that's like the final consequence of the series. The actual conflict, a huge theory, is that it is Mephisto,
Mhm.
because we see Wanda have twins, which could be, in the comics, Wanda's two kids. So yeah, which those two kids are used as like Mephisto's way to sneak into Wanda's life and stuff like that. So I mean, depending on if it's in WandaVision or Loki, I do think we're going to see Mephisto finally,
Yeah.
but we're not sure exactly when it's going to show up. But that's just the main theory. But just a theory. There's no, we don't really know what's happening besides for some reason Wanda's trapped here, so we're trying to get him out.
Mhm. Yeah. So, do you think we're actually going to see any quote unquote mutants on screen, like any of the Fox mutants?
Um, I don't think so because my current theory, like I was mentioning, is that the show will end with this weird pocket dimension kind of exploding out into the real world. Eventually, they find out some way to break Wanda out of it, and that allows mutants to exist in the MCU. So I don't, unless we see someone at the very end of the series as like, ah, yes, here's a mutant. We're actually allowed to have them in the MCU now. I don't think we're going to see them too much in the show, unless, of course, I mean, technically Wanda is a mutant, but not in the way that we've seen her in the MCU. Quicksilver is a mutant, right? But of course, they were called enhanced because they weren't allowed to use the term mutant back in Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
So besides maybe seeing these two people who in comics are mutants, but in MCU are just kind of enhanced individuals unless they retcon that term, I don't think we'll see many.
Yeah. I don't think we're gonna see like Magneto walk onto the screen. I think we're gonna get very subtle teases, but it's also just because like yes, I think the show will be the catalyst for mutants to be in the MCU. But at the same time, I'm not expecting to see, Cyclops walk onto screen. Also because I don't think they have any of their castings yet.
Yeah, if this is not where mutants happen, definitely will be Deadpool 3 because it's been
Yeah.
confirmed to happen in the MCU. Yes,
And
it will be rated R, but I mean,
it will happen.
Deadpool's working with X-Force and X-Men, and like that's mutants, that's X-Men, that's something they weren't allowed to touch until they got Fox.
Hmm.
So sometime or another we will see the mutants. We just don't know if it's going to be like the catalyst is in WandaVision or somewhere else, or eventually we'll just see them with Deadpool.
So any other final predictions before we wrap things up here?
No more predictions, but I did want to mention a new little kind of quote unquote show has released on Disney Plus called Marvel Legends. They are just short episodes. They almost look like
Their
YouTube
highlight
videos
reels.
almost. They're highlight
Yeah.
reels, yeah, of who these characters are and how they've gotten to the point where we're going to see them. So, of course, the first two episodes released were Wanda's and Vision's, ahead of the show WandaVision coming out. Around March, we'll probably get one for Falcon and Winter Soldier. Around April or May, we'll probably get one for Loki.
Mhm.
So they're just little highlight reels to bring more people into the shows where, let's say you didn't watch all 12 years of Marvel movies. Who's Wanda Maximoff? Who's Vision? Who are these people? Well, here's 8 minutes of stuff to catch you up to speed before you watch our new show.
Yep.
That's all it is. So yeah,
Either way, I'm very much looking forward to all this.
yeah. The last thing I want to talk about before we end the episode is the next time that we would talk about DC is after I've watched Batman versus Superman.
Yeah. And so after you watch Batman vs Superman, we'll talk about it. And we're gonna talk about where things went wrong.
Yeah, and so just to give you an idea, the way that I want to set up these kind of DC segments is we'll start with Riley watch this movie this week or this thing this week in DC, talk about it, and then at the end, you'll say, "Cool, next you'll watch this. What do you know about it?" Because I don't know much.
So,
Um,
with that being said, what do you know about Batman vs Superman?
what I know about Batman vs Superman is that it was bad. Um, it has Batman and Superman in it. It's got Wonder Woman in it for a little bit for a reason I don't know. The battles were weird. I know that Batman and Superman have the same first name. That their moms have the same first name, and it's like a
Yeah.
huge thing in the movie for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know. Yeah, that's uh
And in a real
huh.
in a real world context, this
Yes,
movie was screwed from the beginning.
Yeah, I do remember after we talked about it a little bit, it was rushed to try to beat Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, that's all I know about it. The characters, it's got a weird thing with Martha
Yeah.
and like that's it. It's bad.
Mm-hmm.
I also, because you're great, I get to watch the Ultimate Edition, so I'll get
Oh
even
yeah.
more context into it there.
You'll get an extra 30 minutes of content and you'll sit there like, oh, thank God this was cut from the movie.
Oh boy, can't wait.
Yep. So, all right. Well, thank you all for tuning into the RNS podcast. You've been listening to Rain and Sunshine here. And the next time we'll be recording, we'll have WandaVision to talk about.
2 whole episodes. Can't wait.
Yep. So, all right. Thank you all for listening and have a wonderful day.
See ya.